A youth leadership director at one of America's largest megachurches was just fired after police made a disturbing discovery at a local gym.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Tome. I'm called a senior pastor around here if we haven't met before. Everyone staying warm today? I hope so. Hey, if you're a part of our church and you've ever been on the app and we have your email, you got an email from us this last week on a very weighty matter regarding a firing that we undertook. And if you didn't get that email, you're like, hey, I thought it was part of our church. We'd love you to be able to get any sort of email we have. Just register on the app and we'll be able to send you that and other emails that we do. But I just want to say this. We're not talking about that today. We're going to maybe pray about that, but all that needs to be said about that weighty matter, I put in that email, and that is the details and the really real. This week, if you're curious, like, why would a church do that? Why would they call somebody out like that? What does church discipline look like? I'm going to write an article. I'm going to put it in the app this week if you want to understand a little bit more behind our thinking on things like that. So, no statement today, already made it. That's all we're doing. Let's move on. And Joel is, we can move on about the topic. I'm not going to move on. Joel's a friend of mine, by the way. There's a higher standard we hold. Even with friends of mine, we have to hold that standard. But this doesn't define us. So let me pray, and then we're going to get going on something pretty fun today. Everyone good with that? Yeah. All right.
And what church leaders found out will shock you. But here's what makes this even more concerning. This is a guy who was responsible for mentoring the next generation of church leaders. Stay with me, because the details of this story reveal something deeply troubling about who we trust with spiritual authority. Last Thursday, February 1st, 2026, police contacted Crossroads Church in Cincinnati, Ohio, with information that would shake this massive congregation to its core. Joel Firebaugh, the director of their NextGen ministry, that's their youth leadership development program, was allegedly caught secretly filming women working out at Crunch Fitness in the Oakley neighborhood. Now, before I continue, let me be clear. These are allegations. Police are investigating and no charges have been filed yet. But the church took immediate action. Senior Pastor Brian Tome sent out an email to congregants, and I've got to say the wording here is significant. He called it a gross violation of the standards expected of church employees. Firebaugh was immediately terminated. But here's where this gets complicated, and I'll tell you why this matters in just a moment. So who is Joel Firebaugh? This wasn't some junior volunteer or part-time staff member. This was the head of NextGen, Crossroads program for developing potential young leaders who want to explore careers in ministry. Think about that for a second. This is a person who was mentoring young people, teaching them about leadership, guiding them spiritually, representing what Christian ministry should look like. And according to Crossroads' own website, the NextGen program is designed to help young leaders develop their leadership skills for ministry careers. The irony is devastating. The man responsible for shaping the next generation of spiritual leaders is now under investigation for allegedly violating women's privacy and trust. But wait, because the scale of this church makes this story even more significant. Crossroads isn't just any church. This is one of the largest churches in America. We're talking 22,700 people attending on average weekends back in 2015. 9 physical locations across Ohio and Kentucky. A massive online audience. Founded in the mid-1990s and grown into a megachurch powerhouse. This is a church with influence, resources, reach, and according to Pastor Tome's email, this is the first time anything like this has been reported about Joel Firebaugh. The church says they have no additional knowledge of any additional incidents involving their community or facilities. But here's what's concerning me, and I want you to think about this critically. How does someone in church leadership, someone trusted with mentoring the next generation, allegedly engage in this kind of behavior? And here's what we need to grapple with. The church says this is the first time anything has been reported. But we have to ask, was this truly a first-time incident, or just the first time he was caught? Now, the church is doing additional due diligence to determine if other incidents occurred. They're asking anyone with information to come forward. That's the right move. But this raises uncomfortable questions about 1. Vetting and background checks for leadership positions. What screening processes are in place? 2. Accountability structures. Who was overseeing Joel's behavior and character development? 3. The culture of celebrity and influence in megachurches. When ministries get this big, do leaders become untouchable until something major happens? Now, I'm not saying Crossroads dropped the ball here. According to their email, they're cooperating fully with police and authorities. They fired him immediately upon learning about the allegations. That's appropriate. But this incident is part of a pattern we keep seeing. How many stories do we need to hear about church leaders, pastors, youth directors, worship leaders, who abuse positions of trust? And here's what makes this case particularly troubling. We're not even talking about incidents that happened within church walls where there might be more oversight. This allegedly happened at a public gym. The email from Pastor Tome frames this in terms of Christian teachings on confession, sin, and accountability. And yes, those are important concepts. Grace, redemption, restoration, these are central to Christian faith. But, and this is crucial, grace doesn't mean absence of consequences. Grace doesn't mean we ignore patterns of behavior that harm others, especially vulnerable people. The women who were allegedly filmed didn't consent to this. They were violated. Their privacy was invaded. Their dignity was disrespected. And the congregation that trusted this man with their young adults? They deserve answers. So where do we go from here? Cincinnati police are investigating. We don't know yet. What charges, if any, will be filed? How many women were affected? What device was allegedly used? The full scope of the situation. Crossroads says they're grieving this situation and processing with prayer. They're working to ensure the NextGen ministry continues without disruption. But here's my question for you, watching this right now. When you hear stories like this, do you find yourself becoming numb to them? Do you think, oh, another church scandal, and just move on? Or does it make you angry, heartbroken, determined to demand better? Because here's the thing. We should expect better from our spiritual leaders. We should expect character that matches their position, accountability structures that actually work, on cultures where victims are believed and protected, swift, appropriate action when violations occur. To Crossroads' credit, they appear to be doing the right things now. Immediate termination, full cooperation with authorities, transparency with the congregation, invitation for anyone else affected to come forward. Those are the right steps. But we need to ask harder questions before these situations happen, not just respond well. After. Churches need robust vetting processes, ongoing accountability, and cultures where no one, no matter how talented or influential, is above scrutiny. And congregation members? You have the right, no, the responsibility, to ask questions about who's leading your church and how they're being held accountable. Look, I know this is heavy stuff. Church hurt is real. And stories like this can shake your faith in institutions, in leadership, maybe even in faith itself. But here's what I want you to remember. This isn't about the failure of faith. This is about the failure of people who claim to represent faith, and we have to hold them accountable. So here's what I need from you. Hit that like button if you think we need more accountability in church leadership, not less. Subscribe and turn on notifications because I'll be following this story as it develops. When police release more information or if charges are filed, you'll hear about it here first. Drop a comment below. Have you experienced or witnessed abuse of power in church leadership? How do you think churches should handle situations like this? Let's have a real conversation in the comments. Share this video. And people need to know what's happening and why accountability matters. And if this story has personally affected you, if you were a member of Crossroads or you've experienced something similar, please know that you're not alone. There are resources available and your voice matters.